Hey, friends, it is Friday. It is April 24th, Chapter 8. When the Jeep sputtered ahead of them, the Baudelaire orphans trudged back towards Uncle Monty's house, the scent of horseradish in their nostrils and a feeling of frustration in their hearts. It is very unnerving to be proven wrong, particularly when you are really right, and the person who is really wrong is the one who is proving you wrong and proving himself wrongly right. Right? I don't know how he got rid of his tattoo, Klaus said stubbornly to Mr. Poe, who was coughing into his handkerchief, but that's definitely Count Olaf. Klaus, Mr. Poe said when he stopped coughing. This is getting very tiresome going over this again and again. We have just seen Stefano's unblemished ankle. Now, unblemished means we know what unblemished means, Klaus said, watching Stefano get out of Uncle Monty's Jeep and walk quickly into the house. Without tattoos. But it is Count Olaf. Why can't you see it? All I can see, Mr. Poe said, is what's in front of me. I see a man with no eyebrows, a beard, and no tattoo, and that's not Count Olaf. Anyway, even if by some chance this Stefano wishes you harm, you have nothing to fear. It is quite shocking that Dr. Montgomery has died, but we're not simply going to hand you over and your fortune to his assistant. Why, this man can't even remember my name. Klaus looked at his siblings and sighed. It would be easier, they realized, to argue with the snake-shaped hedge than with Mr. Poe when he had made up his mind. Violet was about to try reasoning with him one more time when a horn honked behind them. The Baudelaires and Mr. Poe got out of the way of the approaching automobile, a small gray car with a very skinny driver. The car stopped in front of the house, and the skinny person got out, a tall man in a white coat. May we help you? Mr. Poe called as he and the children approached. I am Dr. Lucrefant, the tall man said, pointing to himself with a big, solid hand. I received a call that there's been a terrible accident involving a snake. Well, you're here already, Mr. Poe called. Oh, but Stefano has scarcely had time to call, let alone for you to drive here. I believe that speed is of the essence in an emergency, don't you? Dr. Lucafont said. If an autopsy is to be performed, it should be done immediately. Oh, of course, Mr. Poe said quickly. Well, I was just surprised. Now, where is the body? Dr. Lucafont asked, walking towards the door. Stefano can tell you, Mr. Poe said, opening the door of the house. Stefano was waiting in the entryway, holding a coffee pot. I'm going to make some coffee, he said. Who would want some? I'll have a cup, Dr. Lucafont said. Nothing like a hearty cup of coffee before starting the day's work. Mr. Poe frowned. Well, shouldn't you take a look at Dr. Montgomery first? Yes, Dr. Lucafont, Stefano said. Time is of the essence in an emergency. Don't you think? Yes. I suppose you're right, Dr. Lucafont said. Poor Dr. Montgomery is in the reptile room, Stefano said, gesturing to where the Baudelaire guardian still lay. Please do a thorough examination, and then you may have some coffee. Well, you're the boss, Dr. Lucafont said, opening the door of the reptile room with an oddly stiff hand. Stefano led Mr. Poe into the kitchen, and the Baudelaires glumly followed. When one feels useless and unable to help, one can use the expression feeling like a fifth wheel. Because if something has four wheels, such as a wagon or a car, there really is no need for a fifth. As Stefano brewed coffee for the adults, the three children sat down at the kitchen table where they had first had coconut cake with Uncle Monte just a short time ago, and Violet, Klaus, and Sonny felt like fifth, sixth, and seventh wheels on a car that was going in the wrong direction, towards Hazy Harbor, and the departing Prospero. When I spoke to Dr. Lucafont on the phone, Stefano said, I told him about the accident with your car, and when he is done with his medical examination, he will drive you into the town to get a mechanic, and I will stay here with the orphans. No, Klaus said firmly. We are not staying alone with him for an instant. Mr. Poe smiled as Stefano poured him a cup of coffee, and then he looked sternly at Klaus. Klaus! I realize that you are very upset, but it is inexcusable for you to keep treating Stefano so rudely. Now, please, apologize to him at once. No, Klaus cried. Oh, that's all right, Mr. Yo, Stefano said soothingly. The children are upset over Dr. Montgomery's murder, so I don't expect them to be on their best behavior. Murder? Violet said. She turned to Stefano and tried to look as if she were merely politely curious instead of enraged. Why did you say murder, Stefano? Stefano's face darkened and his hands clenched at his sides. It looked like there was nothing he wanted to do more than scratch out Violet's eyes. I misspoke, he said finally. Yeah, of course he did, Mr. Poe said, sipping from the cup. But the children can come with Dr. Lucafont and me if they feel more comfortable that way. Oh, but I'm not sure that they will fit, Stefano said, his eyes shining. It is a very small car, but if the orphans would rather, they could come with me in the Jeep, and we could follow you and Dr. Lucafont to the mechanic. The three orphans looked at one another and thought hard. Their situation seemed like a game, although this game had desperately high stakes. The object of the game was not to end up alone with Stefano, for when they did, he would whisk them away on the Prospero. And what would happen then, when they were alone in Peru with such a greedy and despicable person they didn't even want to think about? What they had to think about was stopping it from happening. It seemed incredible that their very lives hinged on a carpooling conversation, but in life, it is often the tiny details that end up being the most important. The tiny details that end up being the most important. The tiny details being the most important. We'll stop there until Tuesday. Homework is a little bit different today. All you have to do is watch a video about a virtual choir. And then for your homework, you have to fill out a Google form that I attached that wants to know if you want to try the virtual choir with me. Sound good? All right. I hope you have a beautiful Friday and a beautiful weekend, and I will see you next week. And I miss you, and I will smell you later.